remind you that you're not alone. Here, we talk honestly about real challenges, meaningful growth, a space for connection, encouragement, and resilience. You belong here.
Hi, and welcome back to our podcast. We are so happy to have you tonight in the month of April for Autism Awareness Night. I can't think of a better way to celebrate than to bring you our guest, Alicia Monroy, tonight. She comes to us with a wonderful story of being a mother, truly with a story of resilience. So Alicia, welcome to our podcast tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited really to share true stories and have a safe space for moms to come and tell their story of resilience and share their times of facing barriers. And talking with you tonight is really a really great opportunity to gauge people where they're at and take them to the next step. And through your stories that you've shared with me, you always do that. You give me hope and you shine the light. So welcome.
Thank you.
Tonight, we're going to get this party started and talk about how you had a journey from parenting to advocacy. And I've always loved that word, advocacy. What does it mean to be an advocate? And you know me, I'm a word person. So I know what it means to be a parent. And those of our listeners who are parents know what it means to be a parent. But to be an advocate is such a different journey. What does advocacy really mean to you?
I think advocacy for me means not accepting no and making sure that my children get everything they need and knowing their rights and what they need to be successful.
Yeah, you're right. And I know that you as a person are an advocate, so it doesn't surprise me that your journey took you to advocacy. So why don't we just take a few minutes to get to know you in the way that I know you and share a little bit about yourself, Alicia.
Sure. So I am a mom to 3 beautiful children, Luke, Ava, and Mateo. Mateo is my youngest. He is 6 years old and he has autism, and that's what sparked my journey to advocacy. I'm also an educational leader. I'm a vice principal. So I think that working with children with special needs and understanding the way that children learn has really opened my mind to making sure that we have all of these things and resources for all students to learn, all children and all families.
And I know that you and I share such a passion about the word inclusion and inclusive practices. I have such great respect for you as a leader, as a woman, as a parent, as a mother. We really together in our journey, together in our work, we always open minds beyond awareness. And I know we talk a lot about Autism Awareness Month. I'd like to really talk about autism acceptance and inclusive practices. I think the world really, and I don't know if you'll agree, but I think we've made the world aware of April, Autism Awareness. And I think that we've brought a lot of light on what autism is through movies. I mean, it was a movie a very long time ago that introduced autism. You know what I'm talking about, right? And people then began to understand the word, right? Autism and what does autism look like? But we know, as working so closely in that autism community, that autism has a large umbrella and can look, sound, and feel very different.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited for you to share that tonight. Let's talk a little bit about your son.
Yes. So Mateo is 6. And he was diagnosed when he was 3 years old. Very early on, I noticed that he wasn't meeting all of his developmental milestones. As an educator, having raised 2 children, I kind of knew what to look for, and what I was most concerned about at that time was his speech. So I did look for early intervention services. It was the height of the pandemic, so that was a bit of a challenge.
Yes.
And I also thought, well, maybe he's having these delays because he hasn't been exposed, like my other children, to going to school earlier, to seeing friends and family. So once I got past that and I was able to have early intervention come in, we quickly learned that he needed speech. From speech services, it expanded to OT and needing more assistance with fine motor skills and gross motor skills. At that time, I started to realize that Mateo's needs were a little bit greater because we started to see more behaviors. And he wasn't aware of social norms and how to adjust to different situations, and he didn't transition very well. So from there, I decided to see a neurologist. When I saw a neurologist, they conducted several evaluations, as they always do. And in that moment, the evaluations, of course, have to be recorded and graded and scored. But the testing neurologist did say to me, I just want to tell you, mom to mom, that your son does have autism. And this is just the beginning for you. And it's not the end. And in that moment, I heard the words, but I wasn't able to really internalize them because all I could hear and feel in that moment was, Mateo has autism.
And was that really the first time that you had heard that?
Yes, yes. And I had those feelings being an educator and knowing what that looks like in different children. I saw the signs, but to hear it was very different.
And she said, it's just the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she gave me hope, even in that moment of hearing that at the moment, that devastating diagnosis, she gave me hope in saying that and knowing that this was just the beginning of this journey that I'm going to go on with him.
Right.
And she couldn't have been more right.
Yeah. And I know that you've shared a lot of progress, and we're going to hear about those milestones that he has reached and the joys, and we'll talk about that tonight. I know when we first are suffering from something, we kind of have to gauge where we're at and kind of, document like the stage of where we're at. And I know for you talked about that this all happened during COVID, which was a very stressful time anyway. Yes. It wasn't often that you kind of went back to where you were in the beginning to kind of see your progress. Did you do that kind of thing for yourself, for your journey?
I did, and I noticed more that as I continued to see milestones being met, that I was more grateful for those moments and those times, and I wanted to remind myself where we started.
Right.
And those leaps and bounds from Mateo look very different from other children. And I wanted to celebrate those and be sure that I internalized them and celebrated them because it took us a long time to get there.
And I know you were really talking to me about the speech and the issue with the speech, and that was one of the early interventions, and you were fighting for his voice, which is really a magnificent, story to listen to. How were you kind of fighting to hear him and recognize how he communicated as a young child, and what does it look like now? So
I think as a mom, we always want to internalize and to know, what do our children want? What do they need to be successful, or what are their immediate needs and wants? And I think for Mateo, it was an extra challenge because I had to anticipate his needs to be sure that he didn't have a meltdown or he didn't get overstimulated. And I think that was a challenge initially, but now I feel like I can almost always anticipate what he wants and what he needs. But I had to get comfortable too with the struggle. And Mateo's struggle to talk sometimes is a good thing for him because he needs to be able to push himself as well, to say, I want juice, I want water. And those moments are really critical for him and his success. So I know he's safe and he's okay, but I do have to be able to push him to communicate and use his words when he can. So you just brought up something that's so interesting. Productive struggle is really what we're talking about. And so sometimes that hurts us more than it hurts our child. I can really relate to that too. And my son also didn't have a lot of language, by two. And I remember prompting him, I want, and then I had to drop out and let that productive struggle. And sometimes it does really, it hurts us. But the joy that comes with that productive struggle is really worth it at the end. And I've seen you and your son together and having that productive struggle. And it's almost as if you're one. And being able to predict behaviors and sit back and allow time. I know that's something that really comes with special educators and moms like you with stories of resilience. So we navigate these challenges, in very different ways. I'm wondering what it was like when he was a toddler and you were navigating some of that versus now, he's at the age of 6. And between 6 and 8, we usually see like a dynamic difference with people who are able to put something together. Yes. You want to talk a little bit about that? Sure. I think that the hardest time from diagnosis around 3 to now 3 years later was finding the correct setting for him, finding the correct services for him, making sure I did find that team and that village, getting the right neurologist that could follow him every 6 months and that I could freely talk to about all the things that Mateo was going through. Yes. When I had that village that everyone spoke about, which on the diagnosis day, I didn't know how I would ever find and navigate that. When you have that village, everything changes. And that's where I felt I am with Mateo now, but also that it took so long to get there. But now that you're here, I don't even know that I have the right word to explain it. It's more than a blessing. Right. That must have been the hope that the doctor was talking to you about. Yes. Right. And the hope that you felt. I think for all of us, professionally and personally, I mean, we want support. It's in our nature that we would like support. Some of us are more controlling than others, but it does feel good to have, a Rolodex of people behind us, not only that can inform us, but can support us. Yes. And I know that you said that you have a lot of great professional people behind you. How did you find the right doctors, the right people, especially during COVID, such a challenging time? I had to put myself out there, and I am somebody that it's difficult for me to ask for help.
Yes, I can relate.
But in this situation, I had no choice. I didn't know all that there was to know about autism, and I'm still learning each and every day.
Yes.
But I took referrals. I reached out to schools. I found parents and families and support groups that helped me and guided me in finding the right doctors and neurologists to serve Mateo. And then I think my biggest advocacy came from finding the right setting for Mateo. Very quickly, I learned that a general setting wasn't for him right now. It is my hope in the future that he can join a general setting, but I knew that it wasn't the right place for him right now. But advocating for that and getting him those services, that required me diving into law books, learning and really understanding all of my rights and being able to vocalize that and verbalize that, knowing that I wasn't going to accept no as an answer.
So when was it that you realized you were actually advocating versus parenting?
I think when I had to go in front of the child study team, and it continued further from there. But I think that's when I realized that I was able to really and truly advocate and speak their language and tell them it's so much more than a mom asking for speech services. I'm telling you that he needs X, Y, and Z because of, and then you present all of the data. And I think when you get to know your child on a data level, it's very different than when you're raising a neurotypical child.
Agreed.
And that data speaks for itself. And that's what we need to collect on most children with autism that need additional services.
And then you started to identify, I know you've shared with me, like that I was an advocate, and there were times where you were that advocate, and there were times where you could be a parent.
Yes.
And which one do you feel more comfortable in on a regular basis?
That's a great question. On a regular basis, I think being Mateo's mom is the greatest blessing. And I think that even though I do these things and I advocate for him and I've taught myself a lot about autism in and of itself, he's taught me about what it means to be truly patient and understanding. And we say the word inclusive, like you said earlier, but how we act and how we inclusive is so much more than just sharing a space.
Right.
Are we giving them a seat at the table? Are we inviting them to birthday parties? Are we assisting the parent when a child has a meltdown? Or are we kind of just stepping over the situation? And I think reaching out, a lot of families and parents feel alone in this. And I think, again, that village and showing that support and inclusivity can change not just our current situation, but the world. And I think another thing that he's really taught me is the things that come so easy for you and I, having this conversation, writing a note to someone. For Mateo, he goes to therapy for hours to be able to do these things. And I think that remembering that and being so grateful for what we have and knowing how hard he has to work for those things has really humbled me as well.
That's interesting. So, I mean, really what I'm always hearing when you talk is that your diagnosis for Mateo led you to the determination that allowed you to be this advocate. And I see when you're together that he relies on you and he knows the trust is there and that you are the one, you're going to be accountable and lead him to the next step. So I know we've talked a lot about the barriers and the difficult moments. And I know on a daily basis, routine is the most important. But within that routine, before we talk a little bit about that, I know there's a lot of unexpected joys. And I know because you've talked so much to me and often we kind of exchange just how last night was or something, something unexpected comes and it brings joy. And I think it fuels you to handle like the next barrier or the next challenge.
Absolutely.
So what are some unexpected joys as a toddler that you experience with Mateo?
As a toddler, I think the first time that I could take Mateo to a park and not have to hold his hand or be right 1 inch from him, that to me felt like a huge win. And finding the right parks. I used to have to navigate, is it a fully fenced park? A lot of parks, for some reason, only have 2 or 3 sides to it. And that was always a source of anxiety or stress for me because he's an eloper as well. So I think the first time I was able to go to a park and confidently know that I didn't have to hold his hand the entire time at the toddler stage was a win for me.
So you use the word eloper. And for some of our listeners, they might not have heard that word before. So that is totally an advocate word, right? So when we talk about autistic children or disabled children and they're in an eloper, what does that really mean to you as a parent?
So as a parent, it means you need to know where he is at all times and you need to work on your athleticism, if you will, because they're quick and 1 second, you can't look away for 1 second. And I know that as all parents, when we were looking at toddlers, we know that to be true for all children. But when you're dealing with a child with autism, it's very different. A child may elope, but they don't know danger and safety. And that was something that was always very stressful for me, because in that moment, if I wasn't quick enough to get Mateo, my fear was always he would find a street or something terrible would happen to him. So I think that I had to also get past that and take those moments and those opportunities to try to put him in those environments so we could learn together and he would understand how far he can go and how close he needed to be by me. And I think doing that is why he is where he is today.
Yeah. So the unexpected joy when you're at the park and you feel safe enough to be there. I know you're still on angst about it.
Yes.
Do you see that he experiences the unexpected joy?
Yes. I think there's something to be said about how we feel. And I know they say this all the time about there's a sixth sense, if you will, about how children know how adults are feeling or how even animals, right? Dogs and cats get a sense of how their owner is feeling. Mateo may not have all the words to say it, but I know that he can feel the energy and how I'm receiving things.
Right.
He'll look at me with a certain look, and I kind of know all of his looks as well.
Yes.
And I know that if I'm uncomfortable or if I'm stressed or if he can read that or feel that from me, it's probably going to lead to a meltdown sooner than if I'm presenting as we're going to be okay, we're going to do this. And I think that that piece allows him to explore more in a safe way.
So I know you talked about, Mateo having limited language at some point. Did you provide a lot more language around that? Like, for example, when you're in the park, did you continue to do a lot of talking to provide language during that time and allow time for him to kind of chime in? Tell me a little bit about how you built language into that.
Yes, I think those sentence frames and prompting has been like a key household element, even down to his siblings saying, oh, you want this, Mateo? And always kind of leading him and prompting that language is kind of second nature in our house. And it probably sounds silly to an outsider, to someone that doesn't always have to do those things. But for us, it's kind of just second nature. And I think, again, that productive struggle is also key to not always give him that language. Just the other day, he said to me, Mommy, I want car. And that is the longest independent sentence he's ever said. So that's another, talk about joys. That was like a true moment that I wanted to stop. I immediately, of course, went to the car, but I did want to internalize that and remember that, because I can remember just a few short years ago when we were working on one word.
And so what did that sound like when he wanted to go in a car a little while ago?
It was just, Mom, I want car. And he pointed as well, which was a precursor to language.
Right,
so we worked on that for a long time as well. And of course, I immediately took him to the car because I want him to know that his voice has meaning and words have meaning.
And he was heard.
Yes.
But prior to that, he would just say car repeatedly,
yes.
right?
And prior to that, it wasn't any word. It was pointing or gesturing or then getting into a meltdown because I wasn't able to understand what he wanted at that time.
So I know you, and you're an interventionist just like me. So he's developing, you're having this joy in this moment, and you take him directly to the car because positive reinforcement, and you want him to know that he was heard, that message you received, and now you're going to go to the car. Are you then already thinking, how can I translate this into other things like I want drink? Are you doing that?
Yes, absolutely. And I think, again, just remembering that I don't always have to give those prompts anymore. It's a hard thing.
That's a very hard thing to pull back.
Thing to pull back in that way, but I think he's ready for it. And because he's ready for it, I have to make sure that I'm ready to support him in that.
So how do you think you're going to get yourself ready for that?
I think I just need to continue to remind myself that he doesn't have the same needs that he once had, and now we can work on a new goal. So if I can take you to the park independently and I don't have to be so close to you, well, maybe the next time we can go to one of those jumping trampoline places and do one of those things.
And try things out.
Yeah, I think that making a bigger goal is going to help his development. I would love one day to travel with Mateo. Those are all goals that I have in the future for him.
So when you write these goals like in your mind all the time, do you also write them in a book? Are you kind of that kind of person? Like, do you have a bucket list of things? I do. I have a bucket list. I don't journal as often as I would like to, but that could definitely be a goal for myself. Right.
But I do have goals for Mateo, and I almost think of it's more of a dreams. Like I have these dreams of Mateo doing things that he wasn't able to do in the past, and I think for me, it's even more than a goal. It's a dream. Like I can't wait to take my son on a plane and go to, I don't care if we go to Florida, if we go to Pennsylvania. Right. It could be a 1 hour plane ride, but I look forward to those moments because there was a time when I thought he wouldn't be able to do any of those things.
And I'm saying getting back to the beginning of the journey and knowing where we started and seeing how far we've come. And even just tonight in this short time, I've traveled and seen how far he has come. And so really, in reality, he's 6 years old right now. I mean, he's come a long way. And you said just 3 years and you captured that. And I know when we first have children, there's these great books, you know, what to expect when you're expecting in the first year and the first 3 months. And all of us as parents struggle with that, I think.
Yes.
I myself also was like a month or two behind and had questions and wonderings. And I'm also an interventionist. I think we all have dreams for our children, but I know that it's so very different. And I know you have a family of 3 children.
Yes.
And your oldest is how old?
13.
Okay, and so he is a middle schooler, a thriving middle schooler.
Yes.
And your daughter is
10
years old,
Yes.
so she's transitioning into a middle schooler.
Yes.
And so having 2 older siblings, and then navigating this during COVID and everyone being home, what was the family conversation? How much did you share with the kids? So it seems like there's just a couple years between those, and then there's a couple years between Mateo.
Yes.
What was that like with the siblings?
So I thought about it a lot because I wasn't sure about the right way to approach things. And I think as parents, we always think about what's the right way. Am I doing it right? Am I making the right decisions for my children? And I think I very early learned that I wanted to just be honest. So I defined what autism was to them. And I asked them if they had any questions for me. It's very hard to understand how children that are at that time 5 and 7, how are they internalizing these things and what's happening in the family? So I wanted to make sure that it's always an open conversation, because the things that Mateo's going through right now may look very different when he hits adolescence. It may look different when he's an adult. So I always keep it an open conversation between my children and I. And if they have any questions, they know they can always ask me anything. We're together all the time, and they understand. For example, my children are heavily involved in sports. So oftentimes when I take Mateo to sports, I'm sitting in the car, kind of watching from the car and rolling down the window when it's their turn up at bat. But they understand that. And they know that I'm there and I'm there to support them and to watch them. But it just looks a little different for me. I don't get to sit on the bleachers right now, or if Mateo's upset, but we're watching from the car. And I think they truly understand that.
Right, and sometimes kids see it as being very different, like your mom's doing this while my mom does this, and sometimes it just becomes a norm, you know? And I know, like, you know, my family did things differently too, and because my husband worked late at night, sometimes my husband would come in, you know, the second half of a game, but that's how we both made a game. Sometimes we'd be standing because we couldn't get the seats and get there on time because I'm a working parent as well. I mean, and sometimes kids do see the difference and sometimes they don't. I know in talking to your son, and he shared a book about his brother having autism.
Yes.
I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you asked him to do that.
Yeah, so I presented the book to both of them, Ava and Luke, and I asked if they were comfortable reading it. It was at announcements as well as a school assembly at the time, and they were. And I was surprised because there aren't children that necessarily want to be on stage and to talk in front of everyone, but because it was about inclusivity and autism awareness, I wanted to see if they wanted their voice to be heard and what it's like from the sibling perspective. I was shocked, and they both wanted to do it and be a part of it. But I'm so proud of them for being able to not just understand Mateo, to love him unconditionally despite the challenges that we sometimes face, but that they were able to openly talk and advocate for him as well. And I think they are advocates too.
I'm so glad you said that.
I'm the adult advocate, but I really feel like they are true advocates for autism as well.
Have you ever said that out loud?
I don't think I have.
Because while you were talking just now, I was thinking, it's really not a coincidence that they were wanting to share the story. And I do think in the future they'll share their story. And I do find them as being advocates as well.
Thank you. That really means a lot.
It really is, like, through your story, through your messaging, and we're always modeling for our children. Children often do more what they watch and observe versus what we tell them to do. And I do think it's through all of your actions that led to that sharing, and for their comfortability of being around somebody with special needs, for being around other people, like adults who welcome it and talk about it. I mean, they're just so comfortable in that space. And sometimes, you know, we're given these challenges, I think, to kind of show people what we can do in this world. So obviously you created such a space for this. I'm wondering, like, how many times in a week do you feel like you're apologizing that it's this way versus the way maybe you'd like it? Or how you kind of engage with the kids during that?
I think that my apologies have lessened. And I think it's, as I become more comfortable, that's the result of it. I think in the past, it was my own fault. But again, speaking about anxieties and stress and how nervous I was to take him out in certain situations, I used to lead, oh, can we have the booth in the back?
Right.
Can we sit over there? Because I don't want to be around a lot of people. He has autism. And I always kind of led with that. But I've learned now I don't need to say those things because he is who he is. And we're a family going out to a restaurant to eat. And if he does have a meltdown or if he does get upset about something, then we're going to handle it as we would as if we were at home at the kitchen table. And I think having that confidence and knowing that I can do those things now, again, just speaks to what Mateo has taught me about what I'm capable of, and also how inclusivity needs to look for all, not just for us and our family. I don't want to feel like we're different in a shared space. We should all be accepting and understanding of any child or adult with special needs.
And so I'm imagining your family going out to dinner right now. And and if something was to happen, that it's probably not just you who's kind of fixing it. The kids, I know, they just jump in. They innately take a position, and I'm sure everybody kind of takes a role in that, right? Can you share like a time where you felt that you should fix it, but you saw the siblings kind of jump in?
Yes, it's so funny because we actually just went out to dinner this weekend, and there was a little a light behind us, and of course the switch was right by Mateo. So when he wasn't engaged in eating his pizza, he would turn around and switch the light on and off. And immediately, without me even having to intervene, my daughter was like, Mateo, do you want to watch Bubble Guppies on your iPad? So she already knows redirection. She already knows, okay, so what preferred activity are we going to present Mateo now, because we have an undesired behavior, and that's playing with the light. So they're already advocates, and it's in those moments that I know that they know his needs, and they want what's best for their brother as well. But we're not going to limit ourselves anymore to what we do, and to getting out there in the community, and to going out to eat and going to parks. And I think that's been a big strength for our family.
I mean, look how far you've come since COVID, since the diagnosis. Where is your village? Your village starts at home. And I know that the kids support you so much.
They do.
And I know from your stories that Mateo trusts them.
He does.
He does.
He does. He absolutely does. And he knows them by name. There was a time when he wasn't able to say Ava and Luke. He knows them by name. He'll call to them. He'll go to their bedrooms to initiate play. So he absolutely knows that they're his siblings. And I kind of feel like he sees them more as best friends.
Yeah. And that's really what a family is, right? And that's what supportive siblings are. I was reading this article recently about like a parent planning for transitional planning and what if they're not here. And that's just an important conversation. And she was just speaking about when families change and the parents are no longer around, we just hope that the siblings have each other. Who will you talk to when I'm not there? Your brother, your sister. So you just mentioned that he comes in and initiates play. And that's not something I was prepared to talk about, but it really makes me have a wondering. What does that look like when Mateo comes into a teenager's room? How do they know? And what does play look like?
So it all depends on his mood and the time of day. If it's the evening, he sometimes just wants to lay with his siblings. He loves to be close to people and have that interaction and that connection. Doesn't have to be a verbal communication, just simply watching the iPad with him. Other times he'll initiate chase. He's one of the fastest children I've ever seen in my entire life. So he wants them to chase him around the house. And sometimes he'll say things like outside. And that means that he wants them to take him outside to the backyard. So it's those moments that you can tell that he trusts them and he wants to play with them. And like I said, he truly sees them as his built-in best friends. Right.
That's great. And I know that they really respond to him, which is just really wonderful.
Absolutely. And you did speak about transitional planning. And I did want to just share in this time together that I definitely don't want to seem like I have all the answers or I have it all together. I'm learning and growing each and every day. But planning for that and understanding what's going to happen when I'm not here, I think continues to be one of my biggest fears. And I think every day I try to look for solutions. What can I do now that's going to help him in the future?
And I'm so glad you said that, because I don't know if you saw the last podcast, but we did focus on transitional planning, and we really were encouraging the idea of starting that so early on.
Absolutely.
And if you don't really have an idea what to do, to start putting together questions. And so I know through our conversations, you have a lot of questions.
Absolutely.
And I know that you read a lot and you explore a lot. Just today you were looking something up to give me some data. But what are your questions right now about transitional planning? I mean, he's only 6. And some people might wonder, why are you talking about when he's 21?
Yeah.
So why are you thinking about that for yourself?
I think we think about it so much earlier with children with autism or special needs because we are teaching our children to learn and to grow to be independent in this world, right?
Right.
And knowing that that may not be the reality, or at least not the reality at the same time as neurotypical children, can be more than devastating, right? Because what happens? Who's going to love Mateo as much as I do? Who's going to advocate for him to make sure that he gets the right housing needs and supports in the future? So I think that that always weighs very heavily on my mind, and I'm sure every mom's mind out there. So I think that planning is critical for now. So I've already started to ask, okay, what funds have to be put aside to ensure that he can have housing in the future if needed? I also want to be very careful about, I want his siblings to care for him and to make sure he's okay, but I also don't want them to I don't want to put them in a caretaker role before they're ready, because he's my son. They're his siblings. I want them to check on him to make sure he's okay, but I have to set him up for success now. And I feel like we're all blessed to be here each and every day. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And when you're raising a child with autism, you become more aware of that.
Right. And I'm sure you're much more aware of it for your other children as well. And I know that you've navigated some choices and where you take them and, and how you plan for them very carefully. I mean, I can tell you, like, as a parent myself, I have a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old, both, thank God, they're in college and doing very well and thriving. But I also have to sit back and think, like, what is the future going to be like? And we are blessed every day to be here. But what would it be like if one of us was not? And those thoughts are really scary.
They are.
But getting the elephant out of the room and stepping into reality sometimes as a parent, it's a very challenging thing to do. But it does really help to pre-plan things.
Absolutely. And I find comfort too in talking about things. And like you said, asking those questions and asking that not just to your village, but to forums or to, you join groups of moms of children with autism. And I think having those open conversations is also therapeutic for me, and not holding it in and saying those things that we may think are silly, but other people have lived through and navigated already. So I think that those moments are very important as well.
And our best decisions are made with information. And I know you're like me, you're an avid reader, and you like to read facts, people's experiences, and that's how we grow. I know as educators, we share that in common. And I'm sure in your situation, it really has empowered you.
Absolutely.
So I know that you were a mom, and you're an educator, and then you became this advocate, right? And you've spread that throughout your family, because clearly we just really talked about that. That's what your kids are. They're advocates.
Yes.
And I think they're advocates also for the community, because they shared a story to empower others to think differently. And I know that you have a lot of involvement also in the community.
Yes.
So I'd like to talk just about how you create community and how you create change within where you live in your community, even your family, in your larger family, extended family in your community, in your school, what you're doing, because it's people like you, and I'm not just saying this because I admire you, but it is people like you who really impact others, and that is what is making the bigger impact in our world.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I have a dream that everyone will really be embracing an inclusive community. So if you could just share a little bit about, let's start with family, extended family. How did you get extended family to understand and be a part of this?
I think initially I had to first make sure that they understood his behaviors and why they were the way they were. And that he wasn't choosing to do these things.
Yes.
He wasn't choosing to not communicate. He wasn't choosing to have these different behaviors, but that all of his needs presented in that way. So I think having them understand what autism was and what it could look like, because it looks very different in all children and the spectrum is so vast, that I think that they needed a true understanding of that. So that's kind of where I started with my family. And the best way to do that is to expose them. It's to see Mateo in action.
Invite them in.
That's the best way to see it in all situations, not just a park or a family party. It's look at what bedtime looks like some days. Look at what getting out the door sometimes can look like. So I think having them see those moments was critical. I think to expand that in my current role and my job position, I was able to see that I had different resources and references of community partners or from service providers. And I started to share those things with families just to make things a little bit easier because, as I said earlier, when you start on this road, you don't know where to begin. Where do I even start? Which road do I take? So I think sharing that is how I was able to connect with the community at large, which has also taught me what their needs are. And I think that overall, as a community, as a state, as a country, there needs to be more service providers. There needs to be, as you said earlier, we need to move from the awareness to the acceptance. What does that look like?
Yes.
And are we all really able to look at children and adults with special needs in the right light? And that's that they are not different. They need to be a part of our community. And I think that the more we talk about it, it really helps in that sense.
I agree.
So for the community partners, it's been wonderful because I was able to expand and join in on fairs and onto special needs events where you get to network with people and learn what service providers give what, where respite care may be. And I think having that network, again, really, really helps as you're building that village. But you're also sharing resources with families that need it, that it may just be starting their journey as well.
Right, and you mentioned earlier, I'm not somebody who really naturally asks for help.
No.
But I think that your engagement and your family engagement, your community engagement is your way of kind of letting yourself be vulnerable and allow for help, but by at the same time giving back. And
Absolutely.
a lot of us give back, and that's how we get that support. So I know that you've done like fairs and you've tabled with resources and you've engaged with families and you've shared resources. I know at school we practice inclusive practices, but in your conversations with some of your intimate friends, I know that your friends are very much like your family and part of your village.
They are.
How do they play a role in your relationship and your building of a safe place with Mateo?
I think that they kind of took on the role. They didn't even know that they were doing it because friends are there to support us, to be the shoulder to lean on when we need one, right? And they were all of that, but they are so much more. I had always feared, are people going to love and accept Mateo? And will we be invited to events? And will we be able to do those things as other neurotypical families can? And when they embraced Mateo, to see my friends love Mateo like he's one of theirs, is a feeling that I can't even begin to express. And they do more for me in just loving and accepting Mateo than I could ever give back to them. And I am eternally grateful for their support of me, but really more for Mateo and for accepting him and loving him.
And I know that you have some friends who also have siblings who then naturally just become, and it just becomes like a contagious, building of a circle. And and I know at one point we all feel like we don't have a village, and then you just, like, time passes and all of a sudden, look, you're surrounded by people.
Absolutely.
So your work with families and engagement, I think, has provided that.
Absolutely. Yes. I just wanted to add, and I think, for me, I'm a firm believer in God and that God makes no mistakes. And even bringing you into my life, I think that it really shows again that everything comes full circle, and that we find these people and you connect and you share resources, and then you work together to continue to build this inclusive world that I really hope that one day we get to.
Right. I mean, but isn't that our purpose? And I always tell people that know me, like, we have gifts and it's our job to give them.
Yes.
And so your gift of advocacy has raised two wonderful teenagers in sharing this as well. And they will grow this as well. I know that us meeting in the education world, I know that we've already had an impact in just such a short time with people. Seeing is believing, really, Absolutely. Alicia. I mean, seeing you with your child, and you've said it so many times tonight over and over, that you've allowed people to see Mateo. A lot of people who have young children, and when they're not in a safe place yet, they do not do that. And it really can hold people behind, and it can hold the child behind, the siblings, and have such a different kind of impact. Look what you've grown. You've grown a garden of inclusive around you, and that's why your neighbors are now inviting their friends, and your village is continuing to grow. And really, it sounds to me that some of these friends are advocates as well, right? And if we can raise, that's what I was talking about, beyond acceptance and, more awareness, and what does it look like, and what does it feel like, and through advocacy, and that's through friendships and family engagement, community engagement, that's what we're really doing. We're really giving people an opportunity, like you said, to come see what it looks like, and not just the behaviors, but what does bedtime look like? What does it look like when I'm trying to get him out of the car? What does it look like when I say I'm going to be late coming home from work and I need someone to help? So people have experienced this. That's really how we grow a true understanding of inclusion, and how brave you are to share that, because I'm thinking of some things that I went through myself and how closeted I felt at that time. And I've been reading a book about empowerment recently that's really led me to a deep understanding, and I think it's because I'm quite older than you, but through all of these experiences, if we can allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we are not only helping ourselves really, we are helping others. And that's truly what advocacy is. And I hear that through your story. Your story of resilience has built you to be a very brave person, but you are really guiding others, your children especially, the school community, the regular community outside, your friendships. And you spoke about how some of your friends really were not really privy to this kind of information or true understanding. And you're really growing other advocates. That's great work that you're doing, and you're doing it just by being you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
So I won't get emotional about that right now. I have some challenging questions that I thought we should just talk a little bit about before we close. Sure. What was the moment that you realized your voice could create change?
The moment I realized my voice could create change was in front of the child study team, when I spoke facts and data, and I knew my rights inside and out, and they listened. That was the moment I knew I can do this. I can move forward for Mateo. I will be his voice in anything that he needs. And in that moment, when we got him to where he needed to be in the correct placement, I knew that I could create some change.
So you said he was diagnosed at 3?
Yes.
And so when was that?
That was about a year ago. So it was his transition into what would be kindergarten when he was 5 years old.
So how do you think advocacy and the deep understanding of what it means to be an advocate and fight has changed you?
I think it's changed almost everything about me. I'm not sure what it hasn't changed about me, because it's not about me. It's about Mateo, and it's about every other family and child with any disability, because in all of this time and effort that we put in as families so that they can have these basic skills, they deserve the world. They deserve so much more. And if I often would say in the past, if I could give him my voice, I would give him my voice, and I would never speak again. And it's those things that you realize on this journey, that taking no is not an answer. And I won't accept anything less than what they deserve. And that's my hope and my wish, I think, for all families dealing with autism, that they know their rights, and that they don't take no as an answer.
So what message would you give a parent who's just beginning their advocacy journey?
This is a great question. I think first and foremost that you're not alone. You feel very alone, and that there is no way up from here, but that you aren't alone, and that you will get through it. You find your village, you find your voice, and you'll be better for it.
And that there's hope.
Always hope.
Started with that comment, right?
Absolutely.
So tonight we are adding an addition to our podcast. We have some questions that came in from some callers. So like I said, this is a new thing for us. We had a question from a caller from Bergen County, and this is the question, Lisa. What is the most challenging social time that you faced with your son as a toddler?
I think the most challenging social time was going to a party. I took him to a party where there was a lot of people at, and I was chasing him every second because he was touching valuables and he was touching glass items, and I was scared that he was going to break something. I didn't want him to bump into anybody. So it was a party, but for me, it was trying to make sure Mateo was safe and nobody was hurt and he didn't break anything. And I think that was one of the most, challenging times that I had.
Did you come home that night and say,
I felt like I ran a marathon.
Yeah, I did a party.
But yes, and then I think from there, that's when I knew boundaries. It's okay, what do I have to pack to ensure that this is a safe place for Mateo? Does he need a preferred item so that we can do a party longer?
Right.
And it's choosing. I don't have to be at every party. He doesn't have to go to every event.
Right.
It's choosing what's right for him now and then working towards those goals.
I love it. You're always so reflective about it. And I know you're a true interventionist, and that's what you do. Like, you reflect and plan. And that's what keeps us going, because we really have no choice in this journey.
No.
We just keep going. Okay, the second question was, what is your most recent barrier as a mother?
I think my most recent barrier as a mother was, or is rather, accepting the things that I can't do yet. As I said earlier, travel. I want to take Mateo to so many places and see him experience new things, but I want to work towards it. And I think that accepting that I have to do one thing for my neurotypical children and one thing for Mateo continues to be something that I work on. It doesn't have to look the same for every child that I'm raising right now, but I have to also accept that as well. I'm going to do the very best that I can, but it won't look the same. We're just going to continue to work towards those goals. And it's a hard thing to accept sometimes.
It is.
But it's something I'm still working on for sure.
Well, we're all a work in progress.
Yes.
So before we go tonight, I just want to ask you this question.
Yes.
Because you do so many things, and you do so many things well. And I often read this quote, that you might be going through a difficult time, but other people are admiring everything you do. And when I read that quote, and it comes out in many different versions on Instagram and Facebook and books, on TV, and I see things that mean that quote, and I often think of you, because I know what that journey looks like, because you've let me see it. Other people have let me see it. I know what bedtime can look like. I know what locking your front door and going to bed and still wondering if the front door is locked. I've been in that situation with families, close friends of mine too. So what is it that keeps you going?
No is not an option, and failing or quitting is not an option, because Mateo, his siblings, the children I'm raising, they depend on me. And I do think, I truly believe that I'm here for a reason, and that I'm in this position for a reason, and I intend to utilize it to the fullest.
You are.
Thank you.
I want to tell you that you are, and you are impacting others. And by you sharing yourself tonight, your story, your family story, your community story, and how you play this role in leadership, you have definitely made an impact. And you have definitely taught me that no is not an option. And so we want to thank you tonight for joining us again with a night of a resilient story, a mother, Alicia Monroy. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. This has been amazing, really therapeutic as well.
It is.
Thank you. This is amazing.
You do have a gift, and I'm glad that you shared it with us tonight. We'll see you again next month. We have so much more to look forward to, many more stories, and always a safe place to share.
Until next time, thank you for being here. You're not alone. Until next time, thank you for being here. Within, brought to you by ADMS. We are here to remind you that you're not alone. Here, we talk honestly about real challenges, meaningful growth, a space for connection, encouragement, and resilience. You belong here. Resilience from Within, brought to you by ADMS. We are here to remind you that you're not alone.